Hi guys, welcome back. Leo McCarthy, spiritual mentor here. And before I forget, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel. I'm starting to do some book reviews. I've gotten a lot of great information from a lot of amazing authors and their books. And one that I just wanted to mention that recently I've been listening to on Audible is Sean Collins, who's a medium, just released his book, Your Soul is the Source of Your Power. And I just have to say, Sean's book is amazing. It gives a fresh perspective on our soul's journey here on earth. And it gives a lot of practical advice to give us permission to step back into getting back into using our imagination and taking that and utilizing that to connect back with our clair senses that we were born with, but society has just kind of like pushed those down or shunned those over the years. And he helps us by giving us some practical ways and some exercises in the book to really give us permission to just trust in our own ability that we already have the capacity to connect. And Sean's perspective that he gives in the book that really resonated with me, that I loved, was this fresh perspective that's kind of always resonated with me, but I hadn't heard it put this way before. The topic of people, mediums, etc., saying how there are lost souls that are either stuck, trapped, or earthbound spirits. And, a lot of mediums do crossing over of spirit. And what Sean's perspective is on this is, I thought, was brilliant. And he's gotten this from his own guidance, from his guides in spirit, that basically when we incarnate here on earth, um, our soul, just a spark of it, just a piece of the whole soul that is in the collective source area remains there, but a piece of that incarnates here when we're born on earth. And we go through different life situations where it could be hardships, it could be traumas, it could be different obstacles that are challenging us that mark our souls. And in a sense, many of these events have marked our souls. And it is understood from a shamanic perspective that we sometimes lose fragments of our soul in pieces and they kind of get left behind because they basically took on whatever trauma or challenge or abuse or whatever we went through. And it was its own way of protecting our soul as a whole by basically absorbing that and falling away and these pieces being left behind. And there has been, over the centuries, shamanic traditions of doing soul retrievals. And the soul retrieval is a practice that a shaman journeys with an individual to the lower world and helps recover these lost pieces and these lost fragments of their soul and helps us understand where the wounds came from. And the soul retrieval helps return these pieces back to the soul to restore it in its whole sense inside our incarnated body. Now, Sean's perspective on after physical death, that Our soul, once it leaves our body, is not, in fact, trapped. It is not trapped. It is not earthbound. It is not left behind. Sean's perspective on after physical death, when our soul leaves the body, it does return back to home, to the collective source. Now, what people and mediums can pick up here left over after someone passes are these certain aspects of the soul. And these are still wounded pieces that were vibrating at a lower frequency that cannot exist in the higher realm frequency with the low vibration. So they get left behind. Um, but it doesn't mean they can't return. And so what happens when mediums are crossing over spirit, they're not really rescuing these trapped souls or lost souls or earthbound spirits. What's happening is when the medium connects, they're actually providing these pieces, these echoes from our soul. They're providing some healing and some perspective for those pieces to heal. And as they bring this perspective to these pieces can be restored and returned back to our soul as a whole in the collective. And that is what's really happening when a spirit is being crossed over. It's really that aspect that carried that lower vibrational frequency from that wound or that trauma or whatever they experienced, that they couldn't make the journey back upon physical death, but it's not the soul itself that's trapped here. So I love this fresh perspective that Sean gives in his book, and I highly recommend getting his book. And again, the name of the book is Your Soul is the Source of Your Power. And it's great hearing it on Audible because you get to hear Sean reading his own book and you can feel his energy and his authenticity that he brings to the topic and this community. So again, I highly recommend this book, and you can visit Sean's website at seanpsychicmedium.com, and Sean is spelled Sean. And again, if you can purchase the book directly from Sean, or you can purchase it directly from various bookstores that are available. And just stay tuned. And I've gotten something out of reading this book that is something that I believed in myself, that I had a really hard time with thinking that these souls after physical death were trapped. And I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And now I understand why, because Sean's perspective that was given to him from his guides and spirit resonated so well that explained a shamanic practice that I have of my own called a soul return. And it the book actually helped me give it a name, because that's essentially what I've done is healed these aspects of what's been left over and helped cross these aspects back over and return them to the soul as a whole in the collective. And so, again, if you like this book review, I'm going to be coming out with many more. And also in the future, I'm going to be reviewing some really amazing podcasts that I highly recommend as well. So, again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And we'll talk soon.